I wasn't supposed to go hiking that day, but something pulled me in, a force I couldn't explain. It started with a restless feeling deep in my chest, a whisper at the edge of my mind that wouldn't let me stay indoors. The morning was gray and cold, the kind of chill that seeps through your clothes and settles into your bones. I had planned to spend the weekend catching up on work, maybe watch a movie or two, but instead, I found myself packing my old backpack, lacing up my boots, and driving out toward the woods near Raven's Hollow, a place I'd heard strange stories about but never cared to visit. The road to the trailhead was narrow and winding, hemmed in by towering pines whose branches scratched the sky like crooked fingers. The air smelled of damp earth and pine sap. A sense of unease settled over me, but also a strange fascination, like the forest was alive and watching. I parked the car and grabbed my gear. The trail was muddy, overgrown in parts, and marked by fading wooden signs. As I stepped onto the path, the sound of the city faded until all I could hear was the soft crunch of leaves beneath my feet. For the first hour, everything was normal. Birds chirped, the wind rustled through the canopy, sunlight broke through the leaves in dappled patches. But then, subtle changes started creeping in. The forest grew unnervingly silent. The birds stopped singing. The wind died down. I noticed the path twisting oddly, doubling back on itself where it shouldn't. My compass spun uselessly in my hand. A thin fog began to rise, curling like ghostly fingers between the trees. And then I heard it, a low, guttural growl coming from the dense thicket up ahead. My heart pounded. I told myself it was just a bear or some animal disturbed by my presence. But as I pressed forward, the growls turned into snarls, closer now, circling. That's when I saw it, a shadow slinking between the trees. It was huge, taller than any man, but moving with unnatural, jerking motions. Its eyes glowed faintly red in the dim light, and its breath came out in ragged, steaming bursts. I froze. Something primal screamed in my mind to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. The creature let out a deafening roar and stepped into the clearing, revealing a face that was all wrong, twisted, half-melted flesh stretched over sharp bones, a mouth full of jagged teeth that gleamed like broken glass. I bolted. Branches whipped against my face, roots threatened to trip me. The forest seemed alive, shifting, closing in behind me. I didn't stop until I reached my car, panting, heart hammering, skin slick with sweat. But when I glanced back into the trees, I saw eyes, dozens of them, watching me, burning with hunger. The moment I slammed the car door shut, my hands were trembling so badly I could barely turn the key in the ignition. But that didn't matter. The engine roared to life like some angry beast, and I tore away from the trailhead without looking back. Even as I sped down the winding dirt road, my eyes kept darting to the dark tree line, half expecting the creature's glowing eyes to emerge again. But the forest swallowed the darkness whole, quiet and still. I told myself it was a hallucination. Stress, exhaustion, the isolation getting to me. But deep down, I knew what I saw was real. That thing was out there, lurking. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the old cabin I was staying in sounded like footsteps outside. Every shadow seemed to shift, to pulse. When I closed my eyes, the creature's snarling face haunted me. By morning, I felt drawn back to the woods, like the forest was calling me, taunting me. Against all reason, I returned. The trail was different this time. The trees were twisted, the ground soft and sickly underfoot. The air smelled rotten, like decay mixed with damp earth. I found fresh tracks, huge, clawed footprints, pressed deep into the mud. They were too big for any animal I knew. They led deeper, into a part of the forest where no light reached. And then the whispers started. Soft at first, like the rustling of leaves. But growing louder. Voices, overlapping in 1,000 tongues, screaming, pleading, warning. I followed the voices to a clearing surrounded by gnarled trees that looked like they'd been twisted by centuries of torment. In the center, a stone altar, stained dark with old, dried blood. My skin crawled as I approached. Suddenly, the ground beneath me trembled, and the shadows around the clearing shifted violently. The creature appeared again, but this time, it wasn't alone. A dozen more figures emerged, twisted, malformed beings, half human, half nightmare. Their eyes glowed like coals, their claws scraping the earth as they circled me. Frozen in terror, I realized the forest itself was alive, feeding, breathing, hunting. The altar pulsed with dark energy, and I understood, this place was a trap, a prison for something ancient and malevolent. And now, I was its prey. My heart thundered in my chest, every instinct screaming to run, but the forest seemed to close in tighter with every step I tried to take back. The twisted creatures circled, their guttural growls echoing through the suffocating air. I stumbled backward toward the altar, tripping over roots slick with moss. The creature's eyes followed me like hungry embers, their breath hot and foul. I could smell decay, rot, and something far worse, an ancient evil that seeped into my bones. Suddenly, one lunged. Its claws scraped my arm, sharp as razors, pain exploding through my skin. I screamed and shoved it away, scrambling to my feet. I didn't have time to think. The forest was alive, its shadows writhing and clawing at me like tendrils. Branches grabbed at my clothes, roots tangled around my legs. I was sinking into a living nightmare. I ran blindly, guided only by instinct. The whispers became voices in my head, chanting in a language older than humanity. I felt my will bending under their weight, the forest trying to pull me deeper, to consume me whole. The creature's red eyes glowed in the distance, closing in fast. My lungs burned, every breath was agony. I was slipping, collapsing onto the ground. Then, the earth cracked beneath me, and I fell into darkness. When I hit the ground, the air was knocked from my lungs. I lay in utter blackness, broken roots hanging like skeletal limbs above me. For a moment, there was only pain, sharp, jabbing pain in my ribs and shoulders, and a dull throb in the back of my skull. Then I heard them again. Whispers. Not from above, not from around me, but from inside the earth. From the roots. From the stones. A guttural chorus of voices that didn't speak to my ears, but to my mind. You were chosen. You were seen. The forest remembers you. I tried to stand, but the soil beneath me was soft and deep, sucking at my legs like a bog. My flashlight had cracked during the fall, flickering weakly in my hand. Its pale beam barely lit the space around me, a narrow underground hollow lined with what I first thought were tree roots. But they weren't. They were bones. Skulls, femurs, shattered ribs, some animal, some disturbingly human. They were fused with the roots, tangled in the growth like offerings to something that lived far older than the trees. Panic surged through me. I needed to get out. I turned, limping toward what looked like a narrow passage at the far end of the chamber. My breaths were short and ragged, my skin crawling like it was being watched from every direction. The tunnel twisted in unnatural ways. It narrowed and widened again, sometimes forcing me to crawl, other times letting me stand. The air grew colder, damper, until my breath puffed out in front of me in cloudy streams. The walls were slick with moss and some kind of black ichor that smelled metallic, like blood left too long in the open. My fingers brushed against something as I moved forward, soft, fibrous. I raised the flashlight and froze. It was a face. A woman's face, sewn into the wall with thick, blackened vines. Her mouth hung open in a silent scream, her eyes wide and lifeless, yet glistening, as if they had just recently stopped seeing. Her skin was pale, stretched unnaturally thin. And she wasn't alone. The walls were full of them, faces, bodies, some whole, others half digested by the living roots. Some ancient, desiccated, others disturbingly fresh. Their mouths were open. All of them. Screaming. Begging. "Join us," the whisper said. "One of us. One with it." I couldn't breathe. I stumbled back, my shoulder hitting a patch of the wall, and it moved. The flesh gave slightly beneath my weight, like pressing into a sponge. It was warm. Something slid beneath my hand. I ran. I didn't care where the tunnel led, only that I had to move. My flashlight began to flicker again. Darkness crept in, swallowing the walls behind me. Then I saw light, faint, greenish, up ahead. I burst into a vast underground chamber. The ceiling was covered in bioluminescent moss, pulsing softly. At the center of the chamber stood it, the thing I had seen in the woods. But it was worse here. Bigger. More defined. Its form seemed to be made of roots, bones, and half-digested flesh. It didn't walk, it grew, inch by inch, vines pulsing with unnatural life. Its face had no eyes, only a gaping mouth that took up half its head, lined with teeth like black stone shards. It turned toward me, and it spoke. Not in words. In memory. I saw flashes of people entering the forest over centuries, drawn like moths to flame. I saw them torn, absorbed, remade. The forest was not just a place. It was a thing. A mind. A mouth. And this creature was its tongue, its guardian, its devourer. "You came to feed it," it said inside my mind. "Now you will stay." It lunged. It rushed at me in one horrifying motion, not running, not crawling, but unfolding. Like it was a part of the forest itself that had simply uncoiled. Its limbs bent in impossible ways, cracking as they reformed, dragging long strings of wet roots across the stone floor. I screamed, not from fear alone, but from the sheer wrongness of it. Something deep in me, something ancestral, something buried in the marrow of my bones, knew this thing should not exist. I turned and ran, but the chamber began to close. Vines whipped out from the walls like arms. Roots erupted from the floor, grabbing at my ankles. The moss-covered stone twisted beneath me, alive and breathing. I could hear it behind me, no footsteps, no panting, just the low grinding of wood against bone, and the rustle of tendrils sliding across the walls. The tunnel I'd come from was gone. In its place was another passage, darker, slicker, pulsating. The walls throbbed like veins, oozing black ichor. I didn't care. I ran. The deeper I went, the more the air thickened. It was like moving through soup, the air humid and heavy, tinged with the smell of rotten iron. I could barely breathe. My flashlight gave one final flicker and died. The dark was total. I stumbled, hands outstretched, slipping on the moist floor. My fingers touched something soft. Something wet. I yanked them back, and in the pitch dark, I heard a low, wheezing moan. I wasn't alone. A hand brushed my leg. Then another. Then dozens. They were all around me. Trapped. Half dead. Whispering. Crying. "It won't let us die. It won't let us die. It won't let us die." I pushed through, sobbing now, clawing my way down the tunnel, past the living corpses rooted into the walls. Some tried to grab me, not out of aggression, but desperation. Their mouths hung open, their eyes milky, their skin fused with the very rock. They weren't just buried in the forest, They were part of it now. One of them, barely recognizable as human, clutched at my jacket and whispered, "You can still run. But you have to leave something behind." I tore away, sprinting toward the faint glow I could just barely make out ahead. The tunnel opened suddenly into another chamber, this one circular, like a great pit. Roots hung from the ceiling like wet ropes. In the center was a shallow pool of water, black and motionless. And above it, suspended like some grotesque chandelier, was a body. No, my body. My face. My clothes. My broken flashlight still clipped to my belt. My left arm scraped where I'd fallen. I stood frozen, staring at myself. Then I heard the other me speak. "Leave your skin," it whispered in my voice. "You've come so far. Don't fight it now." And the thing behind me answered. I turned slowly. The creature had followed me here. It stood at the edge of the pool, tall and now, almost brushing the ceiling. Its mouth hung open like a dead lamprey. From it came a sound that wasn't a growl or a hiss or a word, but all of those at once. A call. A command. The walls began to shift. Vines snaked toward me, slowly, deliberately, like fingers reaching for a precious, squirming toy. The water rippled, and the reflection changed, no longer me, but the thing I would become. Part of the forest. Rooted. Absorbed. I screamed. No. With everything I had left, I turned and ran again, back into the tunnel, into the blackness, into whatever direction led away from that place. But the forest, it moved. It warped around me. The path I took looped back into the same chamber, again and again. No matter which way I ran, I returned to the hanging body, the pool, the watching eyes. I fell to my knees, sobbing. And then, silence. No growls. No movement. Just stillness. When I looked up, the creature was gone. The body, gone. Even the chamber looked different. Old. Abandoned. There was only one tunnel now. One direction. Light. I crawled toward it. Hope rising in me like bile. The tunnel narrowed the closer I got to the light. My shoulders scraped the walls, my knees raw and bleeding. The ground grew harder, stone replacing the soft, pulsing earth. And then, I felt wind. Real wind. Cold. Sharp. It smelled like pine and frost in the outside world. I burst out of the tunnel and collapsed onto a bed of wet moss beneath a gray sky. Trees stretched in all directions. The forest, the real forest, lay before me. I could see the trail. I could see the slope I had come down. Somehow, I had gotten out. I lay there for a long time, weeping. The breeze in my face, the light of day, it felt like I'd been underwater and had just broken the surface. My heart pounded with gratitude, confusion, and fear. I didn't know how I'd survived. I didn't care. I just ran. I didn't stop until the trees thinned and I hit a gravel road. A ranger's truck was parked there, engine idling. I ran to it, screaming, waving my arms like a madman. The ranger, an older man with a tired face, stepped out, startled. "Jesus," he muttered. "You all right, son?" I collapsed against the truck, sobbing, barely able to speak. He brought me to the nearest town. They gave me water, food, questions. I told them what I could. Not everything, how could I explain that? But enough. That I'd gotten lost. That something was down there. That people were dead. They sent a search party. Nothing was found. No tunnel. No chamber. No bones. Nothing. Just trees. When I asked them about the place I'd fallen, about the strange dip in the land, the unnatural silence, they gave each other looks and told me I must have imagined it. That maybe I'd eaten something bad. Mushrooms, maybe. Dehydration. Panic. But they knew. I saw it in their eyes. And then I saw something else, something that made my blood run colder than anything in that pit. Behind the ranger's station, near the tree line, was a wooden board covered in missing persons reports. Yellowed pages. Dozens of them. All hikers. All vanished within the last 10 years. One face, near the bottom corner, stood out. It was me. Or someone who looked just like me. Same eyes. Same mouth. Same scar under the lip. Name, Aaron Cleary. Disappeared, October 14th, 2003. But that wasn't possible. I was born in 1994. I was 29. I wasn't missing. I asked the ranger about it. He looked at the photo, then at me, and went pale. That's not you?" he asked quietly. "No," I said. "It just looks like me." He swallowed hard. "That picture was taken from a driver's license. The guy vanished 22 years ago." My hands trembled. I left that day. I didn't talk to anyone else. I went home and locked the doors. I barely slept for weeks. My dreams were filled with whispering trees and hands growing from the walls. But eventually, things calmed. I started to believe I'd made it out, that the forest had let me go, until I noticed the bark. It was 2 weeks after I returned. I was walking past a tree near my apartment complex when I saw it, a mark on the trunk. A deep scar, like a gash made by claws. It looked fresh. I didn't think much of it until I saw another. And another. All down the street. On different trees. Some low. Some high. Then, one night, I woke to find dirt on my floor. Pine needles by the door. And a strange scent in the air, wet soil and decay. I didn't sleep that night. And the next morning, there was a knock at my door. Not the usual kind. Not a hand. But something scraping against the wood. I peeked through the peephole. Nothing. But when I opened the door, just for a second, there was a mark on the ground. A footprint. Not mine. Bare. Too long. Toes stretched unnaturally wide. I left the apartment the next day and moved across the country. Thought I could outrun it. I was wrong. Because no matter where I go, I see the trees. I hear the whispers. I wake with soil in my bed. And sometimes, just before dawn, I hear scratching on the windows, even on the 12th floor. I don't think I ever left the forest. I think it let me dream I escaped. But I never did. I'm still beneath the roots. Still in the dark. Still being digested. And if you ever feel that strange tug, that sudden urge to go hiking, even when you're tired, or sick, or it's about to rain, don't go. Because the forest is always hungry. And now, it remembers you.